Hello, everyone, and welcome to the virtual breakout session, Displacement and Development, IDPs as Change Agents to Build Peace. My name is Andrea Wegner, and I'm a Senior Director with DT Global's Conflict Prevention, Stabilization, and Transition practice. I've worked in fragile and conflict-affected environments for about 14 years, and have personally led development programming that engages in internally displaced persons, or IDPs, in Afghanistan, Burma, Iraq, Sudan, and Syria. I'm joined today by three panelists who will share observations about how IDPs in Sudan, Syria, and Ukraine have been agents of change and sparks of hope in their communities. Nazik Mubarak El-Mahi Ahmed is a Sudanese development practitioner and the Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Manager for the USAID Office of Transition Initiative's Step Up Sudan program. Michelle Thompson is the Chief of Party for the Injaz initiative, a State Department-funded stabilization through education program implementing across Northeast Syria. Hillary Proctor is Making Sense International's Senior Director of Economic Opportunities and, among other work, oversees technical assistance in livelihoods and youth-focused programming in Ukraine. Thank you all for joining us today and providing your perspectives on IDPs as change agents for peace. While the four of us will start by offering our observations, we know there's a tremendous amount of expertise online. We are eager to have those tuning in join the conversation and welcome you to comment in the chat, sharing observations you have had of IDPs as peace builders and change makers in the communities where you work. Please put questions in the chat as they arise, and we have allocated time at the end of the session for Q&A. So why are we talking about internal displacement? Conflict-induced internal displacement is at its highest level in modern history, with a record number of IDPs worldwide, a number that drastically exceeds that of refugees. Data on exact numbers of IDPs can be challenging, but current estimates range from 59 to 71 million. IDPs frequently straddle the line between humanitarian assistance and international development, based on where they relocate, whether they are in administered versus informal camps, and what governance bodies exist, if any. Like many ongoing conflicts, most displacement situations are protracted, where people live in camps, in settlements or urban areas for years, decades even, which makes this issue much more than a short-term humanitarian emergency concern. Even when government bodies exist, they often do not have the capacity and, in some cases, the political will to effectively support IDPs, particularly if government bodies are conflict actors and perpetrators of the violence causing IDPs to flee. As Ambassador Green noted in his opening remarks, there is a growing recognition that displacement is a development challenge, not just a humanitarian one, and that securing durable solutions to displacement is essential to peace building and conflict management in these environments. Many development programs engage IDPs as part of other vulnerable groups, rather than the active community voices and change makers that they are. I have seen displaced teachers and school administrators in Idlib and Aleppo, Syria, band together to continue providing education in their communities despite multiple displacements. In Burma, I observed IDPs form CSOs to advocate on behalf of their communities by seeking justice and human rights. Our panel today hopes to shed light on the key role IDPs play in their communities, focusing on three contexts where IDPs have contributed to peace building and community resilience. We'll start with Sudan. According to recent data published by the International Organization for Migration, or IOM, Displacement Tracking Matrix, approximately 6.5 million people have been internally displaced since conflict erupted 1 year ago on April 15th in Sudan. The Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, IDMC, estimates that more than 850,000 IDPs have been displaced over the course of the last 4 months alone. Unlike in Syria, where many camps have been established, most IDPs have sought shelter within host communities, apart from some of the Darfur states where longstanding IDP camps exist. I'll turn now to you, Nazik. April 15th marked the one-year anniversary since conflict erupted in Sudan last year. What role have you observed IDPs play in recovering from conflict or preventing its spread?
Well, thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for giving me the honor today to talk about this topic which is close to my heart, talking about IDPs, Sudanese IDPs, and how they are now playing that role in change and providing peace to their communities. Well, historically in Sudan, the war which erupted now before 1 year ago has been fueled by hate speech, like political hate speech, tribal hate speech, social hate speech. It was also fueled by vulnerability and inequality of development across the Sudan region as well, which created, like this suitable environment for dividing Sudanese people and led them to this crisis now, and this war is the ongoing war now. I have family, I have friends, I have colleagues in East Sudan, especially in Kassala, where Kassala now known as one of the biggest areas in Sudan, become like a home for like around 270,000 families. And believe me, all these families, each one, like they are carrying stories of resilience that can teach us lessons and lessons about peace and hope and about recovery. I cannot say resilience because they are still in that level of like emergency and need of humanitarian support. I had a very nice and very interested chat before 2 weeks with one of my friends in Kassel. And actually, we talked about what are we witnessing those IDPs are creating, contributing to change and contributing to peace building in Sudan. He was telling me very nice stories actually, and he told me, imagine Nazik in the shelters now, in the centers, where IDPs coming from Khartoum, coming from the center of Sudan, coming from West Sudan, coming from like South Sudan, coming from different backgrounds, coming from different tribals, sitting together, eat together, chat together, feeling sadness together, feeling angry together, feeling talking about these sentiments of stopping war in Sudan. He told me, now Nazik, imagine when all these families, when the war stop and then they go back home, which kind of peace messages they will carry with them, and which kind of sustained relationship and networks. We all know when you create like a relationship with someone in crisis moments or like hard moments, that would be the strongest one. We also witnessed in Sudan, in the conflict area, in the safe area, those youth groups, which I think now Sudan can be proud of those youth groups. We call them emergency response rooms. Those youths organize themselves. No one guide them, no one lead them to respond to the needs of the families in the conflict zones and in the safe zones. You can see long queues of people like waiting to have food and to have milk for their children, which these ERs or emergency rooms are providing for them. We can see the Sudanese diaspora are helping these emergency rooms to provide this food. We can see them mobilizing resources. We can see them helping them. We can see that diaspora over media, providing information, countering hate speech, and creating that content for misinformation, countering mis and disinformation. We can see also how how a small, very small radio, we witness that like the media, the role of media of like giving hope for Sudanese. Small radio outside of Sudan helping a woman from Darfur to find the safe area where can evacuate themselves, herself and her family. So it's beyond Andrea. It's beyond IDP's capacity. It's emotional, very emotional. But I can look at this now anniversary of war as a space for hope and for peace. When I look to those all these things that we are witnessing, IDPs are carrying for peace of Sudan.
Thank you, Nazik. Thank you for sharing those examples. We'll now turn to learn more about Syria. The UNHCR currently estimates that 6.8 million IDPs live in Syria, many having been displaced for a decade or more, and many of them displaced multiple times. Where the Injaz initiative operates in northeast Syria, there are 12 formal IDP camps with hundreds of thousands of IDPs also living in informal settlements or urban areas. Michelle, what can you tell us about navigating tensions between host communities and IDPs? How have Syrian IDPs mitigated conflict and helped their communities recover from years of conflict and violence?
Thank you. So before I go into depth about speaking on the tensions, I will start with the contributions that IDPs are making, particularly in northeast Syria, where we work. And here we have two sorts of categories of people. And the first are IDPs that are contributing significantly to agriculture and husbandry and other fields of work, such as construction, that require semi-skilled and unskilled workers. And with limited labor market demand within informal settlements in particular, these people, the hundreds of thousands that you mentioned, they're traveling to cities and larger villages, offering their services as day laborers and as sellers. So we see them having a really large role in agriculture, which is a very huge part of the economy in northeast Syria. We also have a number of IDPs, as you've said, who've been displaced a number of times, who are also skilled workers. So these are people who became displaced, possibly while escaping regime-held areas, and have had to move multiple times because those areas of control have shifted over time. And these workers, we should all know very well because they are our international NGO workers. They are the teachers and staff at community-based organizations. And they are the ones who are really giving us, being the eyes and ears on the ground for us as implementers. Unfortunately, despite these contributions, tensions between host communities and IDPs persist. And in my experience, they really persist along three main areas. The first is an othering and a lack of trust between the two groups. Due to the multiple layers of conflict in Syria, so we've had the actual civil war between the regime and non-regime. And then we also have the occupation of ISIS in northeast Syria. And so with those multiple layers of conflict, there are suspicions on why IDPs have become displaced and whether they have unsavory affiliations. So whether this be exposure to ISIS or an affiliation to ISIS, or whether it's a pro-regime person who may be infiltrating. And so there's this because of that history and decade-long conflict, there are definitely suspicions are very high still. We've also seen othering within IDP camps themselves, whether they are formal or informal. We have seen othering within a single IDP camp where displaced people from one area, let's say homes, would not allow their children to attend education programming with displaced children from another area within Syria because they felt we're a different kind of displaced group than this other group. And, you know, on top of this, IDPs also report being paid 50% less than host community residents, even when doing the same work. So in this first category, it really is this othering. They are other and they are treated differently. And why they are other can be for a host of reasons, whether it be lack of trust, suspicion, or, you know, some other kind of negative connotation. The second area is competition. Northeast Syria in particular has been historically underserved with resources well before the conflict started. And so the host community is struggling very much as well. And so there is this competition for humanitarian aid and resources, and this competition for attention of, you know, who is the neediest. And so there's this idea that, you know, why are these people taking resources away that we could be using? And it goes both ways. And then the third category is lack of attention from local authorities and how that contributes to the tensions between host communities and IDPs. And so we've seen that a lot of local authorities tend to think of IDPs as a burden on already limited resources. And so with no management from the authorities, other issues also come up, including land use and legitimization of informal settlements in particular. So if the land has not been cleared and folks do not believe that it rightfully should be used by displaced people, that causes tension, especially in an area where they are competing for resources and also struggling with items such as agriculture and good harvest. And so can that land be used for harvesting? These are all some of the tensions that folks have. And so it really is, I would say, really based on this othering, its competition, and then not being legitimized by local authorities, so that folks are actually integrated and seen as not just others, but as fellow Syrians, fellow citizens.
Thank you, Michelle. And I'll just say that I know that we're going to dive into some of those issues and ideas for mitigating our role and the role that we might play in potentially inflaming some of the tensions that do exist shortly later in the session. So, but for now, I'd like to turn to Hillary and the Ukraine. So, Hillary, can you, so IOM estimates that there are currently almost 3.7 million IDPs in Ukraine. Per IDMC, in the first quarter of the year, the war triggered more than 50,000 displacements, including over 37,000 in March alone. On a hopeful note, last year, the government of Ukraine passed a new resolution that recommends local government bodies create IDP councils to support their integration as reflected in the national government's 2025 IDP state strategy. Hillary, could you tell us more about the work that you do in Ukraine? How have IDPs in Ukraine served as changemakers?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andrea. And it's really great to hear from such a wide view of perspectives of how this is really playing out in different contexts. And here I do want to speak about that spark of hope and some of the experiences that we've seen of working particularly with young IDPs. Through the USAID Unity activity, Making Sense has been actively supporting youth entrepreneurs and self-employed youth across Ukraine. After the Russian invasion, our focus really shifted from helping existing youth-led businesses to adapt to the challenges presented by the new wartime economy, and really ensuring that they were not just surviving, but they were finding the opportunities to thrive as an enterprise. Pivots necessary to keep any business afloat in a changing context oftentimes center around adapting to various supply chain changes, really, understanding different customer demographics and how they shift, managing different staff availability, whether due to their own displacement or the inability to work. Businesses that are led by IDPs face these challenges in addition to additional challenge of essentially restarting their businesses, reestablishing those supply chains, building those customer networks, and doing so in a new environment. This process of relocation and adaptation is a true testament to resiliency and the ability to innovate under pressure. Recognizing the prolonged exposure to toxic stress and trauma experienced by all citizens of Ukraine, we at Making Sense have really collaborated with local partners to offer coaching that applies a trauma-informed approach. This support has been really critical in enabling businesses to make thoughtful, sensitive adjustments to their operations, considering the psychosocial well-being of both their employees and themselves, and ensuring that everybody is getting the mental health and psychosocial support that they need in order to make these adjustments. Despite the challenges that are being faced, the determination of Ukrainian youth should never be underestimated. To date, we've worked with supporting over dozens of youth-led IDP businesses, each of which who has successfully navigated these transitions and demonstrated their ability to be agents of change. I want to highlight two different businesses here that I think are great examples of the potential that can happen. First is the smoked meats of Terasa, which has been a prominent manufacturer of craft meat and sausage production in Ukraine since 2019. The onset of the war necessitated for the company to use all of their savings and to relocate from Kyiv to Nevra Oblast to prioritize the safety of themselves and their workforce. They recognized pretty quickly that there was a surge in demand for these long-lasting, ready-to-eat meals that could be accessible by those other IDPs and those who were not able to access markets. So the company utilized the coaching and grants provided by Unity to pivot their manufacturing focus to producing stew and ready-to-eat meal products that have a 1-year shelf life. This strategic pivot not only sustained their operations, but it propelled a whole nother level of growth, and where they've had over 28% increase in their sales. Moreover, this business then took the increase in sales and pivoted that further into 5 new employment opportunities for individuals within their host communities. So if you're not already impressed, I'm going to give you another business, another example of a youth IDP who is using their business to address a very immediate new need and expand much further. Vesna is a manufacturing company that really focuses in on herbal cosmetics. And they've really, taken this journey of relocating from Bucha to Lviv and really used it as an opportunity to address new markets and expand into other markets. With an eye on this emerging needs, Vesna diversified their product range to include specialized wound healing ointments that they were targeting and supplying to those on the front line and citizens who had been injured during the shellings. This pivot in their products really speaks to the social ethos and responsibility that they have at heart and that they want to offer to all of their communities. Moreover, Vesna did seize the opportunity to explore new horizons. They leveraged their coaching and their grant to really dig into different manufacturing lines and new equipment, and to changing their marketing campaign, which then led to a contract of exporting to their products to Lithuania. So I think that both of these are two really strong examples of how IDP-led enterprises are addressing current market needs and the social demands of individuals in Ukraine. In addition, we've also been supporting in support with these businesses. We've also been working to address the spike in unemployment and developing the programs that are needed for young people to be able to engage in freelance work and the gig economy. These programs have focused in on topics such as, how do I engage in the gig economy and freelance work? How does that empower me in this time of extreme complication and change? How do I find a different niche in these different environments? And how do I look to build out different clients using social networks, recommendations, different platforms that are out there, and building an own personal brand? We designed these initiatives to be accessible even under difficult circumstances, being that we knew it needed to be delivered online and primarily through podcasts and recorded webinars. Many of our participants of this program engaged with the content while spending hours in bomb shelters and using this time not just to stay safe, but to learn and discover new opportunities. And I think a testament of where Ukrainians are today can be seen in the easy number of these recordings having over 350,000 views to them. I hope that these initiatives help highlight how youth IDPs in Ukraine are not just surviving, but they're really actively contributing to their host communities' resilience, innovation, and serving as those agents of change to support others.
Thank you, Hillary, for those really powerful, powerful examples. And I'm going to ask a group question that we also very much encourage the audience to weigh in on. So we've seen a renewed commitment from donors and development actors to better integrate IDPs into development policies and program strategies. We heard it from Ambassador Green this morning. There's also an anticipated update to USAID's migration policy. The World Bank focused on internal displacement at this year's Fragility Forum. And just last week, there was a global conference on IDPs hosted by Refugees International and Georgetown's Institute for the Study of International Migration. So it's out there and it's being focused on. And so my question for you, esteemed panelists, and for you, audience members, how might the international development community further support IDPs as sparks for change and for peace and for hope in their communities? I invite the audience to put responses in the chat, and we'll cede the mic to Michelle to get us started.
Thank you. So from the experience of Syria, where again, it is a conflict of not just one level, multiple layers of conflict, the view or the perspective that I will bring is more that IDPs are agents for change and peace when they are part of community. And as implementers and practitioners, we are, I think, beholden to encourage meaningful access to community. And so from the design of activities and programming, we really need to focus on pre-implementation analysis and contextualization, really understanding what are the barriers to integration. Are there true barriers to integration? Who has the power to be a spoiler for integration? And what are the foundations of their spoiling? Is it something that is due to legality, whether that be land use, or is it part of competition? Are there cultural tensions going on, social tensions? So really just understanding those tensions and trigger points so that you can really have meaningful programming that does not exacerbate those tensions and trigger points. The second is that, and following from all of those organizations that are focusing on IDPs, but it may be controversial, I hope not, social cohesion and programming cannot only target IDPs. While donors may be looking to achieve certain participant IDP targets, specified programming tends to exacerbate those tensions. So as I had mentioned previously, in many communities, they are already struggling as host communities. And so whether it be economic development, livelihoods, even well-being programs, when they are specifically targeting only IDPs, it can actually further exacerbate already existing tensions or actually create tensions. An example of how we try and navigate this on the Injaz program, we have a social reintegration program that works with children ages 8 to 14, and it helps with social cohesion, resilience, peace building, critical thinking. However, we use a 2-to-1 ratio. So 2 children from the host community and 1 child who is either returning from another camp to the community, or a child that may have had exposure to ISIS or another extremist group. And we have this 2-to-1 ratio because working on integration is not a one-way street. It's not a focus on just IDPs. They may need support to help integrate themselves into the community again, depending on where they are coming from. But host communities also need support in shifting their attitudes, in becoming welcoming, and seeing that there are probably more similarities than differences between those who are displaced and themselves. And last but not least, and I think it's probably the most important, is incentivizing local authorities to actually provide services to displaced people. And this is really about shifting this mindset so that authorities see IDPs as constituents that they are mandated to serve. They are not this extraneous group that may be there, may not last there for long. We've seen in the Syrian context, there are some informal settlements that have been in use for years. Actually for 6, 7, 8 years at this point. And so we have to come to reality that as soon as people are in your mandated area, we need to treat them as constituents. We have a responsibility toward them. And so I would also encourage donors and all organizations that are funding these kinds of activities to also think about the governance programming side, having that along with livelihoods programming, with economic development programming, or social cohesion programming. Because if we want to really address these issues, we have to really take it from all sides. And that local authority piece is constantly missing, and they have a very large role in facilitating IDPs as change agents, as people who deserve and have a strong voice in the community.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for those observations and recommendations. Over to you, Hillary, for your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. And definitely want to have a chance to be able to build on what Michelle said of really kind of going from that community approach to a lot of the individuals. And I'll speak to what the international development community can really do from more of an economic lens and really helping to make that transition. So first, I think a lot of it is the empowerment through capacity building of many different types. Really being able to go in and provide the tailored, targeted, specific support programs, whether if that's through training or coaching or different, more robust education programs that really enable an IDP's engagement in their community's economy today and in the market trends that are linked in with the reconstruction economy are critical. providing these essential education support and pathways to it of being able to restructure in your economic pathway is really critical in allowing that pivot for today and to flex over time as necessary. And exactly as Michelle said, of ensuring that these programs contain that social emotional learning space to help IDPs navigate and rebuild within their communities is truly essential. Another really important part is the psychosocial support. Addressing the psychological trauma experienced by IDPs is essential in assuring that they have the pathway forward and access to the psychosocial support and medical health services that are needed is critical. Healing from trauma is a journey, and it's one that should be supported from day one of entering into a new community and really prompted on up and given a pathway throughout as they rebuild both their personal lives, their economic lives, and their future, either in their host community or if they choose to return or are able to return one day. Then lastly is really digging on in and helping to foster on out entrepreneurship and self-employment and transferable employment skills. So encouraging and supporting entrepreneurship amongst IDPs can be done by providing microfinance, grants, targeted coaching and training, really those investment opportunities that are there, and really supports the IDPs to capitalize on the opportunities while providing the essential products and services that are allowed within the community. I know that Ambassador Green spoke to this morning when he referenced the man that he had met and who didn't have a chance to economically engage, and he felt like he couldn't provide for his family and have that pathway forward. It's really essential that we take this from a flexible approach, as the situations are still very fluid and we understand that they will continue to be fluid. Another really important way is understanding how self-employment can offer that pathway of fluidity while maintaining economically engaged. And finally, of really looking in from an employment lens of what are some of those flexible employment opportunities and flexible employment skills that are needed now that respond to host communities and really help set on up for what we all hope for as reconstruction in each of these environments. And so hopefully that adds a couple more elements to us think about of how we can really shift the narrative of IDPs being passive aid recipients to really contributors and part of their societal development.
Thanks, Hillary. All really great recommendations and endpoints. Over to you, Nazik, to share your thoughts.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Michelle and Hillary. I cannot add more to what they said, but I will add only one point that all these recommendations from them, it might be a bit not applicable for the case of Sudan, because the case of Sudan is just 1 year war started. I don't think that IDPs in Sudan are in the stage of providing those like kind of resilient support. What I can say here, just 2 points. The first point is the international community needs to identify the real problem in Sudan, the real problem in Sudan, which caused that crisis, and the huge number of IDPs is the war. This can be started by first, the international community is to understand the sentiment of Sudan. The sentiment of Sudanese, their demand for stopping that war as early as can, because any delay in stopping the war in Sudan can affect in will lead to a regional crisis, and it will affect the 7 surrounding African countries around Sudan, and this will be a regional crisis. starting with understanding this sentiment, starting understanding the Sudanese and the IDPs demand for freedom, justice, and peace. For that one, the international community, I think, should help and support all these platforms and initiatives, political ones, social ones that started in Sudan, all over Sudan and outside Sudan, to stop the war by paying like serious efforts. We need serious efforts in Sudan to stop that displacement and stop the war in Sudan. The policymakers, the decision makers all over the world, the UN agencies, their committees, their convention, all of them. As Michelle said, we need that collaborative effort. We need that responsibility. The other thing is for us as workers, people here in the panel, the audience who are listening to us, we need to work with empathy. We all human, we all have families, we all have friends, we all have colleagues in the conflict zones where these crises are happening. We never wish this crisis to touch them. We never wish that we'll be displaced, forced to leave their homes and their houses and their countries. So putting ourselves in that position and think about this and work with this empathy, I think will help a lot in helping those IDPs. When we think about maybe our family one day will need food and they will never find food, and if a mother of us think about her child will die because he cannot find food, I think this will make change in all our interventions as international or as local, as Michelle said, like governments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nazik, very much. Thank you, speakers, and thank you to many of you in the audience who have been providing reflections as well. So we've got about 6 minutes for audience questions. I know that there are some in the chat already, and so I'm going to pull one from there. Do add your questions along. We likely won't be able to get to all of them, but they will help us all continue to think about this critical issue. So Nazik, we have a question from Nora from APT Global. Thank you, Nazik, for your impactful remarks on Sudan. Marking the 1 year of war, what lessons learned can international development take away to build resilience for women and children? How can international development support the youth groups in the safe zones? Over to you, Nazik.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Nora. Well, this is the most difficult question now that I can have in my life, because, you know, this war now is happening in Sudan is a human violation war, completely. It can be defined like this. Within this human violation, all people in Sudan, including women and children and men, they need protection. This is their priority now. They need in protection. They need humanitarian support. They need food. They need trauma healing, as Hillary said. You know, there is thousands of women experience sexual harassment, experience 100 of them experience rape, 100 of them, some of them now carrying forced pregnancy, you know, because of you can see group rape, you know, and some of them decided to end their lives because of this pregnancy. Nowadays, the news last week is about, we hear some news about 3 children in Omdurman died because they couldn't find food. You know, this is a crime. This is a human right violation. So what can we do for women? From our learning from OTI projects that I am working for, we did so many activities for women who are in the conflict zones and also in the safe zones. Women need support, need protection. Women need engagement. They need to be engaged in all the political processes happening now in in Sudan to stop the war. Women need platforms to express themselves, safe platforms to express themselves, and to get their voices heard. Women need resources, need skills to be engaged, to be able to engage in anything within their communities and take actions in their communities. For the youth, those emergency rooms especially, what we witness that they can be the leaders, the future leaders. They are carrying that sentiments in their work, that seeking the slogan of the December 18th revolution, seeking justice and freedom and peace in their communities. So we can support them with that skills enhancement. We can provide also them with the platforms that can be engaged in any political initiatives or political processes. I'm happy, Noura, that you focus on what I'm saying and what I am saying and your interest to learn more. I am happy also to share more and more about this topic, which is like interesting for me and for me further after this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nazik. Thank you very much. And thank you, Nora, for the question. I think we'll have time for one more question. This one directed to you, Hillary. Thank you for sharing such strong stories and narratives. I love the idea of psychosocial support to enterprises. What did impact for this look like? I was also curious what support for SMEs looked like beyond coaching, given there might be barriers to switching business techniques such as limited resources. Hillary, that's a lot to answer in about 2 minutes, but I'm going to turn it over to you and trust that you're the woman for the job. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. So really quickly, what did the psychosocial support? We were really focusing in on integrating a trauma-informed approach to our interactions with the businesses and the IDPs. And there's 5 main principles of really, being able to apply that. One is safety, of being able to ensure that and recreate that sense of safety, both of physical as well as the emotional. Second, it's really looking in at the trustworthiness and transparency. And from a program level, it really is trying to understand what are some of those triggers and how do we make sure that we are as transparent as possible of the process. And that really leads to clarity of understanding and taking back some of that control. Another is really looking in at support networks, and so making sure that that's there. We've built out different communities of practices for entrepreneurs to be able to come together and to be able to reestablish a lot of those relationships from their original communities as well as their host communities. Another key element is really looking in at that collaboration and contribution. So really hearing that voice authentically and being willing to pivot in programming. Kind of the 5th part is really then going back on into choice and control and providing the space where somebody who has lost that in this traumatic situation can really move back on into that. And that's where a lot of the places of self-employment and entrepreneurship can really play on in, is really being able to provide that back to individuals. And so what does it look like outside of just coaching, of being able to work in that economic space? We've worked in a vast number of ways, one of which that has been very significant is being able to work in micro grants. And so exactly as the question points on out, there is a lot of costs and there's a lot of dynamics in needing to pivot and transition your business. And so we reached on out and we were willing to work on in these grants in the small level. And if anybody's implemented grants, a $10,000 grant is just as much work as a $500,000 grant. But willing to say what is needed is access to these small pools of money to be able to make these transitions and to navigate it. And we'll figure out how to do this at scale on our side, because it's really, truly what's needed. And then really pairing that with the coaching, because that business coaching really addressed a lot of the how do we navigate this space, but it also has really acted as that place of support and encouragement to be able to keep going. One of our coaches continually comes back and says, in each session, a lot of her entrepreneurs say, thank you for calling. Like, you're holding me accountable and you're giving me that nudge that I need to continue to move forward and to be able to advance this and to reclaim control in my life. And so it really does play on in both on that business lens as well as that psychosocial support lens, and then being able to link.
Thank you, Hillary. And I know we couldn't get to all the questions, and I wanted to have a chance to read some of the reflections as well, but just wanted to thank you, Nazik, Hillary, Michelle, panelists, for all of these great examples and recommendations. Thank you, audience, for joining today's session. We've heard examples of IDPs as sparks of hope and many recommendations for how we as the international development community might help further empower and support them. A special thanks to SID for providing this opportunity to have this important conversation, and we hope that you all enjoy the rest of the conference today. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Andrea.
Okay, I have ended the stream on the platform. It was a great session. I enjoyed
Great
it.
job, guys. Wonderful job, everyone. Mabruk, you did it.
Well, I want to say, I didn't want to say this I didn't want to make anybody nervous, but the feedback I got from the other room was that it was overflowing with people who were listening and interested, like overflowing.
Well-
So awesome job. You all did so well. I got chills many times.
Yeah.
And read more about everything, all the work you're doing. Amazing.
Yeah. No, thank you, Sarah, for
everyone.
your help.
So
And thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Michelle and Hillary. I learned a lot from Michelle and
Me
Hillary,
too.
actually.
Oh my
Thank you
goodness,
so
me too, so much. Well, you in Nairobi and Berlin, go enjoy your evenings and your weekends. Get the heck offline, unless you want to keep listening into SID, please do if you so choose. Hillary and Sarah,
first, you will send the record, right?
yes, we will.
Andrea?
We'll make sure to circulate the recording and all of that, and any other questions and reflections from the chat too. We'll make sure that everybody receives. But bravo, well done. Enjoy the
Thank you
conference
so
in
much.
DC, Hillary and
This
Sarah.
is a very big topic. I hope we can find like hours and hours.
We started the conversation. Many more to come. But well
Thank you
done.
so
Thank you,
much.
Sarah.
Bye
Thank you
bye.
so much.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.